Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. I'm Dan Jacobs, and today I'm joined by Johannes Jacobs from Kardashev Won. So, Johannes, tell us, what does Kardashev do? Because I've heard it's cooling the planet, or at least that's what your goal is.
It is what our goal is in the long term. We do have two lines of business that we're busy with at the moment. The one line is supply and installation and maintenance of Organic Rankine Cycle generators. And the other one is, well, I'm glad you asked. The other line is research and development of more efficient ORC generators. An Organic Rankine Cycle generator is just like a normal thermal power plant generator, where in a normal power plant you would pump cold water up to pressure, and then you would send that high pressure water into a boiler to boil and become dry steam, and then that turns a turbine, and then the water condenses and the cycle starts over again. But in an organic Rankine cycle,
that's a traditional power plant. So
yes.
What do you guys do?
So an Organic Rankine Cycle generator is very much the same cycle. It's completely closed loop, and instead of using water as the driving fluid, we use an organic fluid like propane, which has a much lower boiling point. So propane has a boiling point at normal 1 atmosphere of minus 40 degrees Celsius. And in the system, we can use it to harvest waste heat energy from an industrial process, to co-generate electricity on site to help run your process, and use partially renewable energy to run your own process. The renewable energy is waste heat that comes from your own process. But what's very nice about this system is it's non-intermittent. It runs at peak power as long as you have enough heat energy, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So the ROI is very fast normally.
So where do normal people get heat from? Can you use atmospheric heat?
We can't use atmospheric heat yet. The research and development side of our company has got a moonshot, which we want to develop an Organic Rankine Cycle generator combined with highly innovated advanced heat pumps with a high coefficient of performance, in order to harvest heat energy from the atmosphere, either partially or completely, to run an Organic Rankine Cycle generator. And this has several very nice implications for the industry and for renewable energy. If we can get it right, then the success would mean that we can harvest the excess heat energy from the atmosphere that causes global warming to run a power plant to power what we're doing. And if in the journey of trying to achieve the moonshot we fail, we will actually succeed in producing components that are more efficient for normal refrigeration, heat pumps, and Organic Rankine Cycle generators. So we don't have a path to failure, we have two paths to success, which is why I'm pursuing it very, very carefully.
Amazing. So what's the main system that you're working on? Does that sit on, say, like an industrial process where there's an existing process that generates a lot of heat? Would that be one where you typically say this is something that can go on as a bolt-on?
Yes. The Organic Rankine Cycle generators that we supply for our customers at the moment, what they would do is, if we have a customer with a lot of waste heat which is being dumped into the atmosphere or into water, instead of losing all of that potential energy to drive a turbine, we would then be the supply partner for that customer. But it has to be, at the moment, we don't have something that can help you for residential customers, only large to very large commercial or industrial scale. So either the hot flue gas, or if you drive past an industrial complex and you see that one of the big buildings has very large cooling towers or many cooling towers or cooling condensers, then they would be an ideal customer.
Interesting. Okay. And how did you come up with this as an idea? Give us a bit of a background as to your work history and how you've arrived at this point.
It was a fairly long journey. I was introduced to the idea of heat pumps and how they work in 2011. And when I first saw what we were going to install on site, I thought to myself, this is voodoo magic. I'm not sure if this is going to work. You have a system, you put electricity into it, and it saves you electricity. And the first few customers we put in, the system worked extremely well to bring down their electricity bill. And I then got addicted to this idea of using heat pumps. But I didn't know how they worked. So what I did is I got an old one and I opened it up while it was running. And then I investigated what is going on, where the gas is coming from, where it is going, where the heat comes from, how much electricity does it use, how much heat does it, just a full investigation. And then I found that there was several different places where this machine was actually wasting its own heat that it was trying to capture or harvest into a useful storage bank. So I started just as a hobby trying to make a heat pump more efficient. And I came up with about 50 ideas. Some of them I've actually tested and they work very well. And I started asking questions like, can we do this? Why are they doing this? Why are they still doing like that? Can't we do it better? Which I think is in the spirit of innovation, to think outside the box and always think that this is not the end of how heat pumps are made, but this is the starting point from where we are going to innovate. And then in the investigations I did, I thought to myself, well, there's this, the refrigerant gas is running through its cycle. And while it's running through its cycle, it would go from high pressure, expand to low pressure, and all that potential energy of high pressure gas expanding was just wasted through an expansion valve. So I thought, why don't we put a turbine on there? And then the idea seemed to appeal a lot to me, and I dug deeper into it. And that's when I discovered that this system already exists. It's called an Organic Rankine Cycle generator, and there are several companies that are supplying the type of generator that we're talking about. It's an Organic Rankine Cycle generator, if you want to simplify it, is literally a refrigerator running in reverse. How a refrigerator normally works is you put electricity in and it moves heat energy out. And an Organic Rankine Cycle generator works, you put heat energy in and electricity comes out.
You've had a career in renewable energy. You want to give us a quick debrief on that as well?
Yes, I've actually been a plumber for 31 years, and I've been an electrician as well for 31 years, and I've been doing broad spectrum renewable energy, including solar power, for the last 21 years, and I'm very passionate about renewable energy, and I can't get enough of it. And the deeper I dig, the more opportunities there is in renewable energy, and I think the future is very bright for renewable energy.
Amazing. A question then in terms of, I think the principle that you're using here is that energy can't be created or destroyed. It just changes forms. So if we take heat in, then presumably that heat gets used or transformed into, in this case, either motion or electricity from motion. That then also means that there's a drop in temperature. We're literally reducing the amount of heat in the atmosphere. Well, is that a layperson's understanding?
I think the best.
What's the extent to which that would affect, say, industry? Could we, over time, if many companies adopted your technology, could we arrive at a point where there is a meaningful impact on environmental temperatures?
Yes, I think from my point of view, we have to think about it as a starting point. We want to climb the mountain and we're currently at the bottom of that mountain looking up. We might succeed in achieving our moonshot in the next year or two, or we might take 50 years to achieve it. But if we start and we try really hard to make our components more efficient, we will make our components more efficient. And I saw how the solar industry started off with extremely low efficiency solar heating and solar power generation panels, and how over time, every single year, it gets maybe 1% more efficient every single year. But if you take 50 innovations of 1% improvement and you put them all together in one machine, you don't get a 50% improvement, because each innovation improves or amplifies every other innovation by 1% as well. So if you have 1% efficiency improvement on 50 different components and you put them all in a machine, you have a 76% improvement because of compound interest. Yeah.
Interesting. So this sounds like the type of role where someone's got a big giant shed that they're testing stuff in. Is that your reality?
That is my reality, but my shed is so big that I could probably hide my house inside it 3 times. So I've got
That
a
sounds like
workshop.
most men's dream, by the way. A workshop that you could fit your house into.
A mad scientist laboratory. Yes, what actually happened in the past is I had a solar company that was running out of this workshop, and I sold the company, but I kept the workshop. So I'm doing a lot of experiments and tinkering and construction and testing inside this workshop, and I'm filming the whole journey, mostly for record keeping, for research, and I'm enjoying that a lot. Spend a lot of time there. Just to answer your question on the laws of physics and the layman terms of law, I heard a very nice way of the laws of physics being said in layman's terms. Law number 1 is you have to play. Law number 2 is you cannot win. Law number 3 is you cannot break even. And law number 4, you can't quit.
Okay. Sounds a bit like marriage, if I'm honest. But what does that mean? So can you expand on those meanings for us?
So
You say you cannot win. What does that mean?
there's something in physics called entropy. Entropy has got 2 explanations in my head. The one is everything tends to chaos. What that means in physics is heat energy is always running away from the center and becoming equilibrium. And in thermodynamics, we have to fight that with insulation and more insulation and the ways we store heat energy, but it's always dissipating away. So you're always losing some, okay? And then the second explanation is entropy. What was that again? Joules per Kelvin. Just how much heat energy is in a thing.
Okay. So you talk about being an exited founder, and you're a more than once exited founder. Is it twice? Have you two
3
exits?
times.
You've had 3 exits.
3 times,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Wow.
it's Mr. Handyman Ceiling Vacuum Service and Flagship Solar.
Wow. Okay. And I mean, in terms of running those companies, I know that, we've discussed in the past, some of the philosophies that you applied in terms of running a service crew, which I think is terrifically interesting. Can you give us like how you've designed it? Because I think what most people do in a company is they kind of, people get thrown together, they go and do some stuff, but they don't actually necessarily always think about how they design a process in terms of how does the company get to work? How do you put your people to work? But you did do that. So what were some of those things that you used to deploy with your teams to make them more efficient?
I created a whole lot of small sayings, catchphrases. Whenever we have a problem in the business, if it keeps me awake for just one night, then it ends up on a path which I call problem of the week or problem of the month. And then we would solve that problem in the business until it not only is solved, but is an innovative trade secret for us. So it goes to the absolute bottom of the list of problems we need to solve.
So this is a thing that you
Yeah,
guys would solve,
yeah,
everyone in the company. This would be
yes, yeah,
the team's
yes.
problem.
So one of the examples I can give is we were running a small solar business, and then the demand for our services and products increased exponentially over a very short time, and we didn't have a way to capture and manage all that stuff, and it became a major problem. So the problem of the month was sort out a customer relationship management system, a CRM, and we solved it until we thought we could say our CRM system is the best in the industry, which ends up actually being the most simplistic thing. Now, what a lot of people think about business, especially if they're small and they're starting up or they're starting their first businesses, is you see this business as this big thing, but with complicated parts and whatever, and it shouldn't be. It should be as simple as possible. Albert Einstein said, simplicity is genius. And we put this into practice in our businesses where you need to break things down to the absolute minimum common denominator. Okay, it's to the simplest piece. A business is a place or a system to connect a customer with a problem to a solution that we're selling. So the customer has a problem, we come to the solution. And then that also outputs for us in our businesses that the saying, solve the client's problem. Now, if you look at solar power, we often got inquiries where people said, can you please come and give us a quote for solar power? Then we would go there and we would do a proper site visit and find out what the customer's problem is. Because in a way, putting solar panels on your roof and an inverter in your garage is giving them another problem. So we would ask them, okay, so what problem am I solving for you? And many times the customer has no idea what their ideal solution looks like. And your ideal solution looks like this. You open a tap and hot water comes out instantly. You press a button and the light turns on or off whenever you want it to. And when you get your bill from the utility, they owe you money. That's what everything else is detail. So we had another saying was efficiency first principles. Efficiency beats generation 25-1 any day. Okay? So if I go to a customer's house and I do the efficiency first work, I can reduce how much electricity they use by up to 80% before we put a single panel on the roof. Now,
This
for
is the
every
efficiency of their electricity system, efficiency of how they're using electricity.
yes. So we fix where the power is coming from as well as where it is going. So for every $1 you spend on efficiency, you can save $5. But for every $5 you spend on generation, you can generate $1. So that's how it beats it for 25-1. And many times, like if you put a better or good insulation in the roof, that will last 30 to 50 years and it has no moving parts. So you get an enormous amount of return, both quickly and over a very long period of time for doing the efficiency first work. And then there was another problem that many of the customers ran into is if you don't do the efficiency work, then your roof isn't big enough to hold enough solar panels to solve your problem.
I like that because there's in quality philosophy, there's this thing where they talk about stated needs and implied needs. So the customer would state a need. So for example, if you go and you walk into a restaurant, you order a pizza, they'll say, I would want a pizza. But the implied need is that they want it cooked. Like no one ever asks for a cooked pizza, but it's implied in the meaning. I think what you've identified there is like taking that a step further. So going and finding out what is the implied need of what that customer wants so that you can actually solve the problem that they have, not the thing that they're necessarily asking for.
Yes.
Now, when you do that, that sounds like, do you get a different level of trust from your customers because you do that?
Most definitely. So if I can give an example, we would go to a customer's house, and this happened a few times, and they would ask for a solar system. And the solar system would cost, we've done all our stuff in South Africa, so I'm going to quote it in rands, but the rand value would be 200,000 rand for a solar PV system. But then we find out that all they want to do is they want to reduce the amount of money they pay per month for electricity by at least half or 75%. And we can do that with a heat pump on their hot water system. And that would cost them about 1/5. And then we install that and we solve the problem that they were trying to solve and then explain to them why we did that instead of the other one. And then it builds trust because I didn't try to just sell them something big and expensive. I tried to solve their problem. And then they would speak to their friends and their networks, and we would get referrals. Now, we got most of our business through repeat business and referrals. Probably 95% was repeat business and referrals. And that's the space where you want to be. But you solve the customer's problem and deliver quality, and a quality of experience, not just a product, but a quality of experience where from years ago when I was a diving instructor just for sports scuba diving, the boss taught us, remember, we're not just competing with the other dive company, we're competing with golf and movies because people want to be entertained. So if we can make the experience of having a contractor at your house an entertaining experience, then goes from being mostly negative to a positive experience which people speak about with their friends. And word travels fast. So and
What does
reputation
it
is
mean?
very important.
What does it mean to have an entertaining contractor? Because I'm seeing pictures of dancing people and, music band or something. What do you mean by that?
I think exceeding expectations is very important. So always under promise, over deliver. That's the first thing. And then the experience of having the people there. We had something in the solar business called a happy letter. Now, the happy letter covers a whole bunch of stuff for us. When the project is finished, the foreman had to go to the customer's house and say, can you sign this happy letter? And on the happy letter, there were a whole bunch of check boxes. And the check boxes was, were we on time? Did we leave the place neat and tidy? Did we explain the system to him correctly? And a bunch of other the metrics that were on there. And then if the customer then checks them all yes and signs it, then he's got no leg to stand on to say that we haven't finished the work and he can't withhold payment. And the next thing is the foreman knows he's going to bring that form to the customer. So he's got to make sure that the job is done properly. So everything guides down to the happy letter to make sure that the customer is happy and that the crew does their job properly and cleans up after themselves properly. And that just bringing another level of professionality to the customer's situation makes it that we exceed their expectations, and that is a dopamine shot, which is entertaining.
Okay. Yeah. So again, it's a customer journey, it's sort of customer delight that you're taking someone on. Happy experiences. I see that. And in terms of running a work crew, so the one thing is, having the customers and your CRM and all that worked out. The other aspect to that is obviously how you run a business. You need people to run a business. Certainly, at least when you're doing physical things like what your companies were. What are some of the things that you did in terms of finding the right people, working with them, getting people motivated, getting people to understand their the customer journey that you wanted your customers to experience? How do you involve your team to make that a reality?
I think it starts with having a goal in mind from the outset and knowing that you're going to guide the company within a company culture. Culture eats strategy for breakfast any day. Because if you have the right culture, then everybody starts off knowing that they're going to work. And that work means achieving an end goal within a certain amount of time, whatever. But if you have the wrong company culture, then the people you want to attract aren't going to want to be there. The people you want to attract are valuable not only to our company, but to any company. And if they don't like the culture, they can just leave. And if they do love the culture, they're going to want to stay. And then there's something that I learned from you actually many years ago, was employ the best, overpay them, and stay out of their way. And it was interesting that I've got a lot of knowledge and skills, but I would often employ someone who is considerably better at certain things that I am. And then I'd very quickly learn, like, stay out of this person's way, ask the right questions, I must do what they tell me to do. And if you take off the brakes, or if you take obstacles away from the front of your employees so that they can succeed at their day, that's very important.
Facilitating their success. But I think when people say company culture is important, everyone's going to nod and say like, oh yeah, that is true. But how do you create that? Because it doesn't just happen. Well, if it happens, it's hardly ever positive or good. How do you create the good one?
I was hoping that I would prepare for a question like that. So how would you create it? You have to attract the right kind of people in terms of, so now in the interview you ask them questions like, what are your goals? And if they have never thought about it before, maybe they need to have a conversation. But if they come out and they say a whole lot of things like, I want to achieve this in life, I want to be there, I want to meet this type of person, I want, if they have their goals clearly figured out, then you're already halfway there. And then if you ask them, what is the reason why you're working? Because everybody is working to support some kind of habit. Mine is to support my family. Someone else's might be to support a drinking problem. So you got to find out, why are they working there? Because you don't work to work, that's a means to an end. What is the end that they have in mind? And then you choose people who have ambition, who have goals, who know where they are, who know where they're going, and also most importantly are upwardly mobile. It doesn't matter from where you are in life. If you are even slightly upwardly mobile, you're going to be a lot happier and cheerful. And wherever you are in life, if you're downwardly mobile, you're going to be depressed about it. So catching someone on the way up is very important. And then to try and keep that trend going, that their life is always improving in some way, whether it is in their work environment or how much money they earn or what they do with it. And to help to make the employees understand that the employer and the company is in some way in service to the employee, that we want them to achieve their goals. Because if we make their goals true, ours will come true.
Right. And you've got the right employee. I'm just imagining that scenario where you've got a whole bunch of upwardly mobile people working together. That immediately sounds really appealing. But there must be a goal that you set as a business, firstly. So there's a reality that you want to shape within the company to know that that's the kind of person that you're looking to recruit. Where do you start with that? Or how do you identify what it is within the business that you want your employees to identify with?
I guess we have to ask our most fundamental question internally as well. What problem do we want to solve in the terms of, you would have a problem that needs to be solved that you think can be solved by an employee, and then you need to match them correctly. So you don't want to, use a Ferrari to plow a field, or try to use a horse to go to the moon. You would have to match the employee with their job with the person who has the right skills and experience to do it. That's actually quite a good question you asked in terms of how do you get the right company culture going. I'm going to think about that a lot.
But I think you've done it. It's maybe just you haven't thought about how that happened. Interesting. In terms of improving someone's work experience, let's say we've got a crew that's on the road somewhere and they're going to go and install something. So this is their daily role. You get a call, presumably someone orders a package that's been designed and now they're going to go install it. So this is that crew's work. They're going off to go and do installs at different places. What are some of the things that you can look at with their role and say, how can I improve their experience?
We actually have a catchphrase for that. I think the top one is, a bad workman always blames his tools, but a good workman doesn't have bad tools. So it's important to empower them with the right tools and the right resources to succeed, and then to give them the right amount of induction and training, and to make sure that their instructions are correct. And if you have the right person in that situation, then they would go and do that job with joy. In terms of company culture as well, you also want to try and attract the worker who loves doing what he's doing. So there's a saying, if you love what you do and you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And you want to get those people within the job that you want to do or want to get done is done by someone who loves doing that job. I met a lady some years ago, and she's a virtual assistant. Her name is Lisa Swart, and I had the first meeting with her. I asked her, how is it that you love doing admin in a business? Because that's what she does as a virtual assistant. Because I don't like admin at all, and I can't imagine how someone else can love doing that. And she said some very powerful words to me. She said, I just love helping other people succeed at their day. And it blew me away that it wasn't about the admin she's doing. It was about seeing or hearing about the joy on the face of the business owner or entrepreneur who had a problem that was an obstacle in their path, and she took away the obstacles and facilitated success. Yeah.
Amazing. So it's looking at the effect that your work has on someone, not necessarily always the work. That's what
Mm.
I'm seeing in there. But the thread that I'm picking up from here is that I think in a lot of companies, and I think we've all been in the situation, you get tossed into a role, maybe at the early start of your career, and you're expected to just get on with it. And I think companies can do so much better if they're actually thinking about how can I make it easier for my people to succeed? Or what tools can I give them? Or how can I improve stuff? I had a project director that I worked for, and Steve Livingston was his name, and his son actually plays cricket for England now. But he always talked about running interference for your team, and it's an American football term. So basically, you'd be out there being the blocker to stop someone interfering with your runner. So your runner can get the ball through and go and hit the touchdown. And that always struck me as like, wow, most of the time, like it feels like organizations are working against each other. But what if we're all out there helping each other succeed? Novel thought, people go, oh, this is a new idea. So it's lovely that you see that come to life in a small business. But then also, in terms of reducing the complexity of things that people work with, because we can end up in a situation where even though we're installing a limited number of things, presumably there's only so many modules, types of components that you can install on a solar panel or an EV system. How do you minimize or the stock that you hold or the spares that someone needs to have or the tools that someone drives around with? Because that's also something which can develop its own gravitation field and just attract more things. How do you keep that lean?
That's a very good question. And I think a lot of solar companies that I've been involved with in one way or another are making the big mistake of trying everything or seeing stars or fantasizing about one type of inverter or solar panel being better and jumping around and not focusing on one brand and one model. So what we did in Flagship Solar years ago was we focused on one brand, one model as closely as possible. That allows the crew to become absolute experts at that one type of inverter, that one type of battery, or that one type of heat pump. And when the maintenance or repair crews had to go out, they had one small box of spares which fit everything, and it was always up to date, and we always had enough of it, and we would support the winning brand. So we started years ago with Victron, and we stuck to it for years, and then later on we changed to SunSync, and then we stuck to them for the rest of the time that I was involved, and it worked really well. We did have some situations where customers called us that had other installers install for them, and then we would get exposure to other brands, but because we focused so heavily on one brand and one model as far as we could, we did extremely well for our customers because we were far ahead of everyone else in terms of how well we can deploy that solution.
So that means that you guys get seen as the specialists. It's
Yes.
almost you give yourself the chance to be the premium provider just by making sure that what you execute really well rather than trying to be average in a bunch of things. I think that insight's important because any service type business, I think, has got that risk where you kind of go, there's all these shiny things that you want to go and install. If you chose to specialize in something and become the noted specialist for that, that gives you a real selling point.
Mm.
Interesting.
Because it allowed us to become expert specialists. And other people say, yes, but I can do 100 different types of inverters, but to what level can you do it? We can do one. I think it was Bruce Lee said, I'm not fearful of the person who knows 1,000 kicks. I'm fearful of the person who knows one. And I think it was Ivan Meisner said, it's better in business to do 6 things 1,000 times than 1,000 things 6 times. And we just took that principle and we proved them both right.
Amazing. So in terms of advice that you would give to someone who's running a service business, be that, solar panel installer or plumber or electrician or chippy woodworker, what are some of those things where you say, like, avoid some pitfalls, or, these are specific things you need to look at? So from your experience, if someone came to you and said, like, I'm running a service-based business, you would say to them, what?
I think what I've seen is what many businesses do wrong is they compete on price. And that is a mistake. If you really want to reach the top, you need to compete on quality. Many times we closed the sale successfully and we proved ourselves right as well, is where I would say to a prospective customer, listen, we're not the cheapest in the town, but if you use us, then the solution we will deploy to you is the most economical. It's similar to what Elon Musk is doing with his rockets. A more expensive, more reusable rocket is more economical.
So that's a value creation statement then. So
Yes.
you create more value for your customer than anyone else. But it talks about quality, though, because a lot of businesses would listen and they'd hear that quality statement and they think, oh, that means I need to be more expensive. Does quality necessarily mean that you are more expensive, or does it save money?
Trick question.
It's not meant to be.
So let me give you an example in terms of solar power batteries and inverters. The cheaper battery system would be, or was years ago, lead acid batteries. But lead acid batteries have got, when they're brand new, have a 60% turnaround efficiency. So if you put 10 kilowatts of electricity into a lead acid battery, then you have 6 kilowatts that you can pull out. With a lithium battery, it is more expensive, but for every 10 kilowatts of electricity you put into a lithium ferrous phosphate battery, you can pull 9.5 kilowatts out. That means you need 4 less solar panels, or you need 25% less solar panels to get to the same amount, which means that using the lithium ferrous phosphate battery is actually more economical than using lead acid batteries, because the balance of system is going to be less. Now with inverters, we had, I don't want to mention brands, I'm going to say brand number 1 used 200 watts internally to run itself, and brand number 2 used 25 watts to run itself. That means if I build like for like the same amount of usable output out of brand number 1 with lead acid batteries and a more expensive brand number 2 with lithium batteries, then more expensive equipment traditionally, if you had to compare like for like, would actually be cheaper from day one. But it depends on what you're going to use in terms of usable output. Because the first one, lead acid batteries with brand number 1 inverter, you would have to build a much bigger one, maybe twice as big, to come out with the same end solution. I don't think quality is more expensive. It can actually be cheaper. It just means, like, you have to break it down to its tiniest common denominator. What problem am I solving for you? Do you want an inverter or batteries, or do you want your lights to turn on when you want them to?
So just quickly, in terms of solar panels and people getting numbers from things, what's the important number on a solar panel? What should a user really look for, a prospective customer?
I think it should actually be split into 3. You can have 20 kilowatts of solar panels on your roof running on a 10 kilowatt inverter running on a 30 kilowatt battery. So it also depends on what kind of load you're running. So if you have a commercial system that starts up in the morning at 8 o'clock in the morning and closes at 5, then you need quite a large amount of solar panels with nearly no battery. And it'll run because the load will run directly off the solar panels. without needing to go through batteries once or twice.
Conversely, if you want it at night, you probably need less solar panels and more battery.
Yes.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, so how we navigate that customer, like we would navigate with every customer, is we would do a site visit, go and see them and ask them, what problem am I solving for you?
Interesting. Okay. So, Johannes, if people wanted to get in touch with you, where could they do that? You've got a YouTube channel as well.
I've got a YouTube channel. We are
Yeah.
slowly growing as a YouTube channel. That is, it's been a sideline thing for years, but I'm doing it more deliberately at the moment with the workshop. It's called Trolls Workshop. So if you just go to YouTube and you search Trolls Workshop as one word, no apostrophe or hyphen, you will find
And you and your business?
my business, Kardashev Won. If you just Google Kardashev Won, the one is spelled UON, like victory, like one and then fill in the form. There's a web form. Join the waiting list, and we will have a look at your inquiry.
Amazing. Okay. Johannes, thank you so much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure being here, Dan.
Thank you. Pleasure having you. Thanks, Johannes.
Okay, thank you. Bye bye then.